it's hard to make pension policy interesting. But actually, I think you guys are doing a pretty good job this afternoon. And I think it's an incredibly important topic. And let me try to put a little larger perspective on it. And Mr. President, just to be clear, I rise in support of the Han Amendment. And I think it's the most dramatic piece of pension reform that we've seen in the Senate this year. And I think it's going to be really important that we come out of this session with pension reform. We've heard the talk of a train wreck. I think that's an accurate description. What we are doing now, what states all across the country are doing now with how we run and fund pensions is not working. It is broken. Our current state pension models are broken. In fact, if you look across the globe, we have entire nations going bankrupt. And part of that is because of unfunded pension obligations. The worst pension problems in the country are probably more like California, Illinois, and New Jersey, but we here in Minnesota cannot be too smug, because we're probably in that next set of states where the red lights are flashing on the dashboard. We are making promises to our retirees and to our current employees. We are making promises that we cannot keep. So we can choose to ignore that, or we can start putting some sensible pieces into law that make some sense, that will fix the numbers. And that's what Senator Han is trying to do here. Members, U.S. state pension funds have a $1 trillion shortfall. That's not from some Republican, that's not from some Democrat. That's from the Pew Center on the states. Nonprofit think tank, does a lot of research, does a lot of analytical work, and they just came out with this report about a month ago, so it is very timely. I asked to have the one-page summary of Minnesota passed out and included in your materials, members. What's Minnesota's piece of this $1 trillion gap? Well, you can see for yourself that even before the stock market tanked last year, that Minnesota was only 80% funded. So in whatever benefits that we have promised, for every dollar of benefits, we only had 80 cents. That was before Wall Street tanked. There are some estimates now that we're down to 60 cents on the dollar, and some of our major pension funds even down into the 50 cents on the dollar. So members, things are broken, and I think maybe another way to look at it, without getting our eyes kind of clouded over, is that this year's unfunded pension obligation is next year's tax increase. This year's unfunded, broken pension system is next year's spending cut. That's just junior high school math. That's not hard for us to understand. The actuarial stuff, the investment rate, the calculations, that's tough work, and I applaud Senator Betzold and the Legislative Commission on Pensions. That's a tough commission to serve on. But members, we can't just keep doing the same thing. The Han Amendment would bring a piece of our pension system into the 21st century. The private sector is moving away from these defined benefit plans. They're running away from it because they can't afford it. Mr. President, we can't afford it. So I strongly support the Han Amendment. I ask you to look real carefully at this handout from the Pew Center. I ask us to think about, let's just take one step in the direction of pension reform. It won't mean much for today's pension numbers, but we have to start worrying about the 5-year and the 10-year and the 20-year trend. And there is a lot of red ink in those years.